Hi, my name is Charlie McGrath. I'm the founder of WideAwakeNews.com and a host on the Rinse Radio Network, co-founder of Doomcast. The big picture, you know, the establishment media right now, regardless of what channel you turn it to or what website you go to, will have you focusing on Israel and Gaza. Now, as I interviewed Warren Pollock just the other day about the situation with Israel and Gaza, we see that regardless of economic status, regardless of political uh, spin, the situation in Gaza has been the situation in Gaza long before Israel and has been that way since the 1600s. A land without rule, a land that is used to divide, and a wedge. Now, that's not to be said that we shouldn't feel compassion for the thousands and thousands and thousands of people that have been injured and the thousands that have been killed in this latest incursion with Israel rolling into Gaza and thousands of civilians being killed. It's absolutely troubling. The Look, the thing that is on my heart and mind more than anything is what we see rolling across the borders, rolling across the headlines on the borders of Europe. We see a Europe that is divided. We see a Europe that is dominated by the West in one hand and by the East on another, and potential global war that is the outcome. This potential global war is life ending as we know it. Gaza is a big deal. Gaza and Israel is a big deal. But in the United States of America, Gaza and Israel isn't going to end life as you know it. A conflict between Russia and the West is going to end life as you know it. And it is imperative that we realize what's happening almost on a daily basis, either in the headlines or out of the headlines, when it comes to the situation with the West versus the East. It's amazing to me how quickly we are distracted. It's amazing to me how quickly we can forget about the Yanukovych government and how it was destabilized and toppled with American dollars. It's amazing to me how quickly we can look at the Poroshenko government as being righteous and just. Look, in a recent interview, an aide close to Putin, when they were awarded a $50 billion settlement, a company called Yukos was awarded this multi-billion-dollar settlement against Russia. An aide close to Putin said, "What do we care about this ruling? War is about to unravel in Europe." This should terrify everybody. This activity going on in Ukraine right now, this civil war, as it's being labeled by some, or as nothing more than terrorists by others, should be an absolute terrifying event that we are witnessing. And we're going to sit back and watch this occur, and sit back and watch the United States government continue to supply either intellectual help or actual physical help to the troops in Russia, or to the troops in Ukraine rather, to the point that it sparks a war with Russia. This is going to happen. It's inevitable. You're not going to have the West back down. You're not going to have the Poroshenko government back down. You're going to have a continued escalation, even with reports of this so-called deal between Germany right now and Putin. But this deal is never going to come to pass. This is wishful thinking, just like in 1914, or just like prior to World War II, when Neville Chamberlain came back waving a piece of paper saying, "Peace is secured in our day." There is no such thing. We are pushing the bear. We are pushing the limits. We are pushing Empire America to the point of no return. And we are sitting here focusing on anything and everything other than the events going on inside of Europe right now. We are tied to the hip with what happens in Western Europe. What happens with the UK, what happens with Europe, happens with the United States. Russia right now has a very much vested interest in stopping this advancement of Western Europe. Now, this news is not even news in the establishment media until a Ukrainian airliner is shot out of the air. But almost as quickly as it came to fruition in the media, it is leaving the attention of the media because of other events around the world. I don't want to be an alarmist. I don't want to try to scare anybody. I don't want to be labeled as anything other than somebody trying to report the news and look at world events for what they are. But if you're paying attention to the roundabout that is Israel and Gaza, if you're paying attention to other things around the world where it versus the United States or the West versus destabilized nations, it's an important topic. And the killing of people is important wherever it happens. But if you're not paying attention to what's going on in Ukraine, what's going on behind the scenes between Ukraine and Europe and Western Europe, then you are missing the next big war that is coming to this planet. And let me assure you one thing right now. Regardless of how bad the fighting gets between the United States and ISIS or ISIL, regardless of how fighting gets between Israel and Gaza, nothing compares to what the kind of potential violence that can occur between the West and Russia. They have the weapons, they have the technology, they have the will, and they have the manpower to achieve something the likes of which we have never seen. And it is important not to lose focus on what's going on. Hunter Biden, the Obama administration, the powers that be, the too big to fail institutions, they all have a vested interest in destabilizing Eastern Europe for their own benefit. But as they do this, they promise to bring desolation to the United States of America. We need to realize this, because if we don't realize it now, we're going to realize it too late. And when we realize it too late, we'll have a media telling us that Putin and Russia and the Soviet or the former Soviet states that back Russia are the enemy. And we need to go to war with them. We need to send more troops. We need to send more resources. We need to send more energy and personnel to that region. Because if we don't, we're going to have what? We're going to have another Cold War. You fill in the blank. We've seen it time and time again. We let the powers that be with their financial interest go into a region, and if they're stopped, we are led into war with that region. It's time to wake up and realize what's happening. And it's happening in our name. Let's realize this and stop it before it does. Stories are attached. That's all I got.